Oh my goodness, you put them all in.
Please come and sit down. We're blocking the way, but don't let us stop you. Please come sit down.
Oh, what did I just do? I don't know what I just did.
I'm putting tissues in my pocket because when you tell stories about your name.
Oh, so it needs to be vertical.
I don't know what it did. Like, it was horizontal. I hope they can't hear me. There's no telling,
flip it?
though. Yeah, go for it. Go for it, master of technology.
Here, can you grab your phone?
Oh, it's saying rotate it. You can't rotate it. Oh. Well.
Okay.
Lily? Lucy?
We can do either way.
For some reason, it wants me to hold the phone this way, but it's sideways.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, man.
So,
See?
rotate your phone. So we just leave it like that?
But then this still has to be
Yeah.
turned for it to...
So why don't we get someone to get on the stream?
If I
Get
finish...
someone to get on the stream and check.
Yes.
Mom, can you get on the Facebook stream? Yeah.
It really is being very weird. It did a weird rotating thing, so I just want to know how it's...
Here.
And it won't let me unrotate it. Do you have the link?
Well, I feel like I'm here.
Here.
Yes, that's it.
The other one.
Watch video.
Yeah. So looks.
Oh, good. Okay. So,
Oh, it's working perfectly. This looks great to us watching now. It is right.
well, it's a bit crooked, guys.
It looks so. Yeah.
There,
There
better.
we go.
That's
Right?
better. Too much.
Ta-da!
Cecil, just so you know, if you stand there, you're being live streamed.
You are live. Okay. Are you Tammy?
So it's delayed.
Okay. So
Once you get to your
There's a delay, Tish, but I don't think it matters.
No, there will always be a delay.
Okay.
So you can just stop watching it because it's probably might create feedback or something. I don't know.
Janny.
Are you having a good day?
Please come sit down, everybody.
Nice to hang out with Laura, isn't it?
how are you doing?
Nice haircut. Thank you.
I'm actually not cold.
I just look haircuts. You don't look. It's not about me. Oh well, this is pre-COVID.
Can you see okay, or do you need to move over one more?
You know, I'm still working remotely, so that's right. Thanks for all your help. I said, I guess one day I'll have to retreat other than yoga pants, but as long as it's not today. It's good today. Yep.
Yes.
Carolyn, is Tammy here? Is Tammy here?
Yeah, she's right here.
Here.
I thought those were kids.
You did a great job working.
I will. We can ask. Somebody can watch it.
You didn't want to hand those off to her?
She has her own copy. She came prepared. I just put it in the thank you though.
No problem.
All the printing.
I'll be printed with one thing, boo. Let's not give me any credit.
Oh, do you want the pictures?
I have, you mean these?
Oh, I already have them. I wish I knew how to mute this.
Can I mute it?
Hopefully they can't hear us.
It's 2 o'clock.
I think we're waiting for Gigi to get here.
Really, anywhere.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like there's no point in using it, I guess.
Just come on.
Well, that's not entirely true. I've written several people.
All right, well, don't sit next to her. Then everybody else.
But I'm also taking tickets.
There's an entrance fee apparently. Please come. There's more here. There's not the line for us. No one's there. All right.
Oh.
I'm supposed to.
I forgot to tell her where to stand. I don't see her again.
Right there.
All right. So we're going to be a slight delay. Gigi, my mother-in-law, and her escort are about 8 minutes out. So we're just going to wait.
Do you have your phone? So we can just let people know it's going to be a few minutes. Your birthday present now? Oh. TV, like TVs or PIGI?
I always thought it was GIGI. This is my old cousin Nina.
What it looks like it's coming from you.
This is Betty. I taught with Betty, and she kept me sane for so many years. And well, as sane as I am,
Mayor Carl.
she did her very best.
Can you reply to her?
And she works. She works online. And her son Ian is like just fabulous. He's a great musician. Yeah, Ian is
No, no way. Maybe you were thinking.
Done it in a timely manner. I think I
Oh,
caught it either.
I'm gonna rat you out.
Okay. Oh, that's clear enough.
Yes.
Where are you living? Where do you live? We live in North Buffalo, east of Niagara Falls. We moved there in 2013, but we lived there almost.
Wow, how did you choose that location? Why?
My son and his family.
Yeah, my nephew teaches that. So when they retire.
It's really nice. I haven't missed California.
Yeah.
I should do this in your voice.
California most of the
I was like, okay, Tish, sounds good.
She always used to
I
say,
probably wouldn't say hopefully. I would just say the link to the slideshow, wherever you put it, and then the 20 minutes of Rachel
she
Pickett.
said, I never want to be away from this place in the summer because it's lush.
But in the winter, they were always very happy to
No,
come
let's
down
not talk
here.
about winter. Let's not talk about
Well,
Don't do it to yourself. Just enjoy the moment.
I will,
Sun.
So you're really open to
I'm going to. I forgot to bring.
No. This feels cold to everybody, doesn't it?
this is what my house
Oh
looked
my
like
goodness, no.
just a couple of days ago.
Days ago.
Oh, Gina texted you. That's what I was
I'm gonna say after the company higher.
Yeah.
I can
Well, I
Honestly, it's kind of great that we do have different stages of it. Why did this one stop moving?
decided this year
I don't know. I guess you're gonna have to dive in there and see. Is this yours? That one's yours. Yeah. That, yes, you will. Thanks for asking.
didn't do anything.
Oh, okay.
I love the technique.
No, that just makes me feel old. Tell me young person, tell me the mind of the screen.
So, what is your work?
It's 8 years older.
But about my coworkers have pictures like
If my sister-in-law was here,
I'm gonna brace her.
she would say,
I was a little bit after that, just visiting. Just visiting. What program did you do?
Did you find it?
Well, Mr.
No, he came after us.
I think it's probably gonna spend this time.
I gave up. Okay, I gave up. Trying to find 99.
no, Anthony. Yeah. There, I think, trying to ferry Rachel's great granddaughter.
Good of you to be here. So how did you know?
Oh, it's so nice to meet you. You were such good friends to them. And I used the handyman you recommended to Rachel. Oh,
You've done good.
we like your work. That's what Rachel said. She said you got out to dinner. Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of started us all.
Yeah, yeah. Carolyn. Tilt them up so the glares to the ceiling. That's good. Yep, yep. Yep. Yeah. Facebook.
6 months.
Yeah, yeah.
Running there, that's weird.
Yeah, so there's 280 people watching. Tammy works with Whole Life Church, which is formerly Florida Hospital.
Oh, is that right?
She's very talented. Oh my. Play production. All that's kind of a side gig for her. She teaches at a private school. And she's a fantastic photographer. Really gets the best.
You see okay?
Yep, I got it. Hey, Gigi, right here.
Huh. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good picture.
Well, somebody who's busy, you can't do this.
Yeah.
Wasn't that me? Yeah, that's very old. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Aw, that's so cool. Oh, man, you were young.
Yes, I was young. I got married young. I got married.
We'll just let them roam around.
Good afternoon. We're testing audio right now online just to be sure that I can be heard. I'm not sure who to look for. Make sure that's happening.
We're waiting.
We're good?
Hold on.
It's delayed. Give us a second.
Okay.
Can't hear her. Jen.
No.
You need to have the earbuds.
Need to do the earbuds, yeah.
They want to test it without. Oh, okay, yeah. All right, I'm gonna make sure I put the right one in right here. Okay. To this celebration of life from Rachel. So whether you're here in this beautiful setting or whether you're joining us online, the family is so thankful that you're here to celebrate. I don't think any of us would choose to be in this place for this reason, but it's important. It's important to gather. It's important for the connection, to share love, and to share healing. So really, genuinely, thank you for being here. And now I believe we have a special piece of music.
If you don't like it, then get the hell out. That's what they.
You know, that's the last song. So you got a preview of what's coming. I guess we're allowed.
Talk louder than you think you need to, Wes.
I'm going to try. When I was 2 years old, Rachel convinced me that I had pulled out her doll's eyelashes, which she had actually done, and I got into trouble for it. She didn't admit to doing this until I was in college. When I was 4, Rachel convinced me that she was blowing her nose into the washcloth while we were taking a bath. So I did what I thought she, really just making the noises and pretending to, and I got in trouble for it. Another time, Rachel comes flowers would be a great idea. She was pretending something, and for some reason, the eating of the flowers was a must in her mind. Later that day, I had to have my stomach pumped. So basically, I got into trouble for that too. There are so many other stories like this, not because she was mischievous or trying to get me into trouble. She was just always so much smarter than me. Smarter than most of us, really. There was always so much competition between the two of us. If anyone ever played Dutch Blitz or Mario Kart with us, you would have had a small glimpse of it. Sometimes that competition led us to being each other's worst enemies, and it led us away from each other for a time. But Rachel fought hard for us. And a few years ago, the best thing that ever happened to me was that a very strange shift happened. We stopped just being sisters, and we grew up, and we became best friends. As all of you know, once you had met Rachel, it wouldn't have taken you very long at all to know just how much she loved her family. Not that she thought we were perfect, which, of course, clearly we are. And not that there wasn't ever family drama. Drama? Our family? No. But she cared for her family deeply and fiercely and would have done absolutely anything for them. One of her favorite places to be was around the dinner table on Sabbath afternoon, talking and bantering and basically just lowering it up. She loved when all the people she loved were surrounding her and laughing
and talking and analyzing life. She really would have loved to be here with all of you. Rachel was one of my favorite people to talk to. She was a deep thinker, and she could go round and round on so many different tangents until the person she was talking with probably couldn't even remember what the original topic was, but they could walk away from the conversation knowing that they were better people because of it. She knew how to tell me the things I needed to hear in a way that would actually make me listen. She made me laugh like no other. She knew when I was stressed out, when I needed some ashwagandha tea, when I just needed to be heard, or when I just needed to watch some silly movie together with her. She was my partner in crime in countless memories, our matchy-match outfits, our Barbie beds made out of shoes, playing takeover in the living room, and reading together. Well, she reading to me rolling around the room, she yelling that she would stop reading to me if I didn't sit still, etc. No one else ever played right, according to us. She could finish all my Disney movie and my friends' quotes. She could fill in the memories that I only hold one half of. She held memories that I don't even have, but that would help me to learn more about myself and my family when she would retell them. But it wasn't just with me. She was great at knowing what others needed, even when she didn't know what she needed herself at times. She was just insightful that way. Rachel had the incredible talent of getting people's attention about issues she knew were important and to make others want to better themselves. She knew how to say things in a way that caused others to want to know more about her passions and to become passionate about them too. Rachel wanted to be a teacher from the start. There was never a question in her mind. She even dressed up for it for Halloween when she was 4. She was always learning about new things, even though she knew she could never know enough. And as she learned, all she wanted to do was to share that knowledge with the world. She knew when to whisper it quietly in a private conversation. And she knew when to shout it from the rooftops or from a protest that she believed in. When she graduated from Southern Adventist University and got her wish to become a teacher, she was elated. Ask any of her students through the years, and they will vividly remember her, "Ooh, this is a teachable moment," face. She loved her students deeply. She pushed them to be better versions of themselves because she could see it in them. She always wanted her students to love things that she was teaching them in the way that she loved those things, but more importantly, she wanted them to learn to love the people behind the things she was teaching, the ones that others didn't always see, the ones that were historically marginalized or left out completely. She wanted her students to learn to treat all people as human and to love them as human, as equals, as worthy. When her values and those of the institution that she taught for could no longer be reconciled, she knew it was time to leave teaching in a classroom setting. Leaving the classroom set her on a journey she knew would be one that she would be on for the rest of her life, and that it was absolutely worth living and dying for: social and racial justice. In March 2020, Rachel was offered a job at a not-for-profit organization that did just that. It is called Showing Up for Racial Justice, or SURJ, S-U-R-J, was that they knew that the only way to fight racism is to show up and to speak up. Newbold wrote, when she was still in the hospital, he wrote to me and he said, while technically he had been her teacher, it was actually she that taught him the most about racial justice. As much as Rachel loved the North and being a Canadian/Yankee, she sacrificed all of that to move back to the South because she knew that being with family on a day-to-day basis mattered so much more than all of that. During those beginning times of COVID, for about a year and some, her family were the only people in her bubble. And that was exactly how she wanted it. Any one of us of family who had been around would have been included in that bubble. But Valme and Cecil, Janice and Gigi, those were her people. They helped to raise Joshua and Lily. They know all the routines and the songs and the places and where things go. They got to know Rachel and Jonathan as adults and to learn what mattered most to them now. They were there for the hard conversations. They were there when she needed them the most. She knew they would be what her family would need now. She loved her family, her friends, and her fellow man in the same fierce way. It didn't take long to see her heart. Jonathan saw it from the moment he saw her. I was actually there on the day they first met. Rachel was the worship leader that Sabbath. I was sitting next to a friend of mine who was also here and who knew Jonathan and was working with him. She leaned over me and asked Rachel if she knew a Jonathan Meharry who went to this church sometimes. She didn't, but the name stuck in her mind. The sermon ended, and Rachel went back up to sing the closing song. And as the service concluded, I was sitting and waiting for her. She started down the stairs, and then from the corner of my eye, I saw this guy half walking, half running towards her. I truly don't think I would have noticed what was happening if it had been at any kind of a normal speed or in a normal way. This person, Jonathan, beelined up to Rachel and started awkwardly gushing. Rachel was doing her, "Oh, that's great. I'm so glad the service touched you," kind of a thing. And my friend turned to me and said, "Look, she does know Jonathan." I looked at Rachel and knew that she didn't, but I did know that she had this funny look on her face. She didn't look like this guy was freaking her out too much, at least not enough that I needed to go and step in. He later said that he had never before done anything like that, nor had he ever had such an intense need to talk to someone before. Later that afternoon, that same friend who had been with us at church received a text message from Jonathan, who had apparently been stalking her on MySpace to see if he knew anyone who was friends with her. And he was asking for Rachel's number. Rachel was just fine with giving out her number to him. In fact, she was glowing because he had asked. She had already told us about his beautiful blue eyes. They made a Panera date for the next day. And that was it. It was truly love at first sight. Jonathan, you love others as deeply and as fiercely as Rachel did. You have a strength that Rachel saw in you that will now prove to be the very reason you were chosen to lead your kids through this darkness. She was always great at knowing the right person for the right job. Rachel once wrote in a post on Facebook, "Who I am today is who I'd rather be. Stronger, more sure of myself, mom to 2 awesome kiddos. No, I don't look the same or younger like many of you. Wow. But I wouldn't trade anything in for the 10 years ago me. The lessons have been too precious, the cost too great." Rachel and Jonathan have 2 beautiful, strong, and empathetic kids. They know how to express what they are feeling and how to respect all people because of what Rachel and Jonathan live out daily. Lily and Joshua, your mama wrote you some things that she wanted to be shared with you now. Joshua William, you were named for 2 amazing men. Your first name comes from Joshua in the Bible, who was a man of great courage and deep loyalty, just like you. William, your middle name, is also your papa's middle name. And Mama and Daddy couldn't be more excited that you share that and so many other amazing qualities with him. Lily Ann, you were named for two fierce women. Your first name, Lily, comes from Lily Potter, Harry Potter's mother, whose love protects Harry throughout his story and who is talked about as a singularly kind woman who could see the good in everyone, perhaps especially when a person couldn't see it in themselves. Your middle name comes from the great Anne Braden, a woman born like you in the South, a white woman who chose to love the South rather than to give it up as lost to racism. She took risks on behalf of a better world, specifically fighting for racial justice wherever she could. You already have so much in common with them, and that is beautiful. Mama also wanted to speak these words into both of your hearts. She wrote, Lily and Joshua, use your privilege to lift others up. Find ways to pass the mic to people who haven't historically gotten to speak. Answer the question, how are you, honestly? Because however you are in the moment is valid and it's important. Feel your feelings. Don't numb them or push them away. Learn a second language if you can. It opens up whole worlds. Believe historically marginalized people. Mama also had some words that she had read from other people that she loved and that she felt summed up what she wanted for each of you. Do the best you can, and when you know better, do better. That was said by the great Maya Angelou. Love who you choose, because love is true. That was said by Innocento Nagara in your A is for Activist book. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. That was said by Miss Caroline Flack. And being kind is more important than being right. That was said by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Lily and Joshua, you two and your daddy, I see you, are the best things that ever happened to her. She loved you guys more than words can ever express. You are her greatest treasures. To Tiago, she was excited. She was so excited to finally have a brother. Valmy and Cecil had only been talking about it for our whole life. She was astounded by your intellect and loved to know what you thought about things. To Eliana and Benjamin, my children, it was the joy of her life to be Tia Rachel. When I told her I was pregnant with you, we laughed and we cried, and she said, I can't wait to tell them stories about you. She taught me one last important concept, to show up. That standing up can be done from anywhere, but that showing up was what mattered. To Sarah and Chris, Nora and Ruben, you guys were her people. She called you to be here each time because she knew that you guys would be exactly what her family would need. Sarah, you got her. You just did. You guys have all, you and your family have been such a huge support for all of us through this. I get why she always called you and why Jonathan and I will continue to, because you guys know how to show up. I'm so thankful that I get to celebrate Rachel's life with all of those who were fortunate enough to play a part in it, big or small. Even through tears, it is these memories that bring a smile to my face, as I know they do to yours. And I believe that this is how she would want to be remembered. Thank you to all of you who have shared your thoughts and memories of her with us over the past few days. It has been such an honor to see Rachel through your eyes. She really was such a bright light, and you guys are helping her love and her legacy to live on. Last year, in the middle of both of us struggling over the conclusion of one of the many unfair trials that have come up of late, she sent a quote to me from J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I felt that it was fitting. It says, Frodo says, "I can't do this, Sam." Sam says, "I know. It's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here. But we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered, full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing. This shadow, even darkness must pass. The sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't, because they were holding on to something. Frodo asked, "What were they holding on to, Sam?" And Sam said, "The fact that there's something good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for." Her call to me, to you, to everyone would be to show up, because there is good in the world and in each person in it, and that is worth showing up and fighting for.
Well, I have the great privilege of reading some memories from some dear friends of Rachel. I think if we just heard from Carolyn, it's the memories that we will cherish. Valmay was gracious enough to allow me just a minute to share my story with Rachel. My story with Rachel as an adult begins actually with Jonathan. Jonathan and his sister were good friends of my daughter at Southern. And my daughter mentioned sometime there was a friend of hers who was interested in this young woman in Orlando and wanted to date her from afar, but could only do that if he could come on weekends. And so Jonathan became a second son. And so he would stay with us on weekends while he was courting, it's an old term, Rachel. Now that was a really real treat for us. We weren't sure exactly how Cecil was feeling about it, because as having an adult daughter, the dad doesn't always go along when these relationships start to get serious. And we knew that was happening. But it was just a treat to watch that relationship grow and what you've developed, what you've brought. And I agree with Carolyn. She chose well, Jonathan. So then years later, in the midst of the beginning of COVID and the racial tension that was happening, our church decided that we needed to do something, and we formed a panel to talk about racism. And Rachel was gracious enough to spend her time and her effort and her energy to join us in a panel. There was 5 women that got together, Chrissy, Linda, Atara, Rachel, and myself. We formed a real bond, and I had a passion for justice without a doubt. But Rachel takes somebody who may have a passion, and what she did is she taught me the posture to take in that passion. And it's a posture of curiosity. It's a posture of learning, because you can have passion, but Rachel was brilliant in how she dealt with that passion and what she did in this world and what she's taught so many people to do. So I will be forever grateful. Okay, there's some memories that were sent in. And also, I'm presuming, I wasn't told this, but I'm presuming that as those of you here, as well as those of you online, please continue to share your memories in the chat, so the family can watch that later. I know that they'd probably really appreciate that, and I'm sure you'll all share as well. Okay, this first memory is from Melissa Neinstedt, who's a friend. Rachel's smile, laugh, and that look she gives you when she's egging you on to say more of something funny will be etched in my memory. We have had so many good times together with our friends at the gathering, where we met just over a decade ago. Camping adventures together, or just hanging out over a meal and laughing, most likely at something funny Jonathan did. We had the joy of becoming parents at the same time, with Joshua only 2 months younger than Simon and making that transition to parenting. Friends forged through early days of first pregnancy and parenting can be so special, and we were both so grateful to see the boys' friendship blossom like brothers. And even after they left New England a few years back to become closer to family in Florida, as they grew their family of 3 to a family of 4, somehow we managed to stay in touch, and the conversations we would have will stay with me forever. I will miss being able to talk about life, work, parenting, all along the way. She was so generous and kind and loving. She listened without judgment and offered such a grace about her friendship. I imagine many have experienced her welcoming warmth. Rachel was so intentional with her choices for herself, for her family, with her values, with her work and her passion for racial justice. I am so inspired by her ability to be so passionate and dedicated, and to her commitment to grow and adapt personally, to learn and unlearn things, especially as a historian. She was always open to a new perspective. It grieves me to think that she will miss out on future debates and a good logical argument with Lily and Joshua over the pressing issues of the day as they grow older. And I know that passionate spirit, that force for equity and what is right, will be with each of them as they move forward, to know without a shadow of a doubt it's their mother's heart they carry inside them. And she has taken a piece of me with her. And it also she leaves pieces of herself behind in each one of us who had the honor of knowing her. Next is from Kristen Hammersley, who is a co-worker. My name is Kristen Hammersley, and I worked closely with Rachel for many years when she lived in Boston and was part of a technology company called Sapient. Part of that time, I was her boss. Part of the time I was her colleague, and all of the time she made me her friend. My life has been better for it. The first time I met Rachel, when I met Rachel, she was an assistant for some executives who had reputations as being tough to please, but of course they loved her. We met face to face for the first time at a company event I was planning in Salem, Massachusetts. I was a ball of stress, working on all the last minute things that needed tending to at the conference. And I vividly remember Rachel just kind of showing up because the event was in her backyard, so to speak, and her execs were present. She didn't have much of a formal job to do at the event at first, but her energy and enthusiasm to just roll up her sleeves and dive in to help was fantastic from the start. Working with Rachel at Sapient. I had the great pleasure of hiring Rachel to switch roles at Sapient and join the communications team. Her career really blossomed in the role, and so did our friendship. I started to consider her my work wife for how closely we partnered most days. She was new to communications as a profession, but wicked smart, as we all know, and also fantastic at writing and making the complicated things seem straightforward. She had a knack for figuring out how things worked. She was curious and tenacious. It wasn't long before Rachel got a promotion and had a whole team reporting to her, both in the US and in India. She led with grace and kindness. She has such deep respect for other human beings, so her role in leading internal communications for the company was natural. It was deeply empathetic work, even if it is in a corporate environment, and Rachel was amazing at it. Being a new working mom and supporting other moms. When she first started in the new role for communications at Sapient, she found out she was pregnant with Joshua. So just as she was starting to get going in her new job, we were already planning for her maternity leave. Personally, she was over the moon with joy. Professionally, she had some worry that she was letting us down or taking a step back with Rachel. Challenges became opportunities. Very quickly, Rachel was one of the core members of an informal group of women, young women with young children. We supported each other personally and professionally. It's underappreciated that women in particular need this in the workplace, and Rachel was part of creating that fabric at Sapient. You need extra cover because the sitter got sick? Rachel was there. You want to get your baby to give up his midday nap? Let's talk. You need to take another day off because it snowed like 10 feet in Boston that one winter and you just can't dig out the car to get to daycare? Let's reschedule your important meetings. I'm so blessed that Rachel was part of that support system for me and others, and it is my hope that it made early parenthood a tiny bit easier on her and Jonathan. I'm missing some good Rachel hugs today. Without an excuse to see each other through work, and of course, living in different parts of the country, it's now been way too long since I've had the joy of receiving one of Rachel's hugs. The few times per year we would get to work face to face, being greeted with a hug from Rach was never one of those polite things coworkers do, like friendlier than a handshake but not touching too much. No, this concept was foreign to Rachel. A Rachel hug was full-on embrace, heart to heart. She held you close. You would think it might be time to release the hug, but Rachel wasn't done with you yet. A Rachel hug made it clear that you were not just a coworker to her. You are seen and held and loved. What a gift. Jonathan and Joshua and Lily. Rachel loved you with all her heart. You were only a half step from her thoughts and intentions during her work days, every day. Her face would light up with joy when work meetings would turn to, "How was your weekend?" Or, "How are the kids and Jonathan?" She loved you fiercely. And if love alone could cure cancer, she would certainly be here right now. May her memory be a blessing. I hope her deep love for you brings some comfort today and in all the days ahead. And then memory number 3, from Leah Epps, a former student. There are really so many things I could say about Rachel. I was a student of Rachel's during her second year of teaching. She taught 7th grade English, a pivotal age in my life. I was pretty much the class clown. I know she wanted to fight me, but one time, me and my homegirl played a prank on Rachel and locked her out of some room. We ended up in the principal's office, but it all ended well. Smiley face. She used to have this time in her class called 20 good minutes. It didn't matter what we wrote about or the structure of it. We just had to write. She never read what we wrote, just made sure we didn't fake it. Another smiley face. It was because of this that writing became an outlet for me. I became a better writer because of 20 good minutes. Additionally, for one assignment, we had to memorize a poem. I chose Still I Rise by Maya Angelou, and Rachel suggested that I read it, knowing why the caged bird sings. That book helped me not to feel alone in my experiences. I still write for leisure now, and I don't think I would write as much as I do without Rachel's influence in my life. On a funnier note, Rachel was dating Jonathan at the time, and I remember she told us one time that statistically, people get engaged after 6 months of dating. I was looking at her like, "Ma'am, what?" I'm going to miss her so much. And I'm thrilled that what was chosen to bring us to a close is called the reverse St. Francis prayer. Many of us are familiar with St. Francis prayer. This is a reverse St. if I could talk, St. Francis prayer, which I think beautifully reflects Rachel. Lord, make me a channel of disturbance. Where there is apathy, let me provoke. Where there is compliance, let me bring questioning. Where there is silence, may I be a voice. Where there is too much comfort and too little action, grant disruption. Where there are doors closed and hearts locked, grant the willingness to listen. When laws dictate and pain is overlooked, when tradition speaks louder than need, grant that I may seek rather to do justice than to talk about it. Disturb us, O Lord, to be with as well as for the alienated, to love the unlovable as well as the lovely. Lord, make me a channel of disturbance.
Now the song that you had to preview of. I think it's important for you to know that these were songs that Rachel wrote down, and she chose these.
Not part of the original
It
song.
sounded okay.
I don't know where that
The bulletin board next to my sister's desk. She has these great quotes and she has these different affirmations there. She has a feelings chart. It's her on a wall and it's beautiful. And before I left at Christmas time, I had taken a picture of that wall. Because I said, wow, that's Rachel. That's Rachel on a wall. This is wonderful. It says, I will not die an unlived life. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days, to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid, more accessible, to loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance, to live so that which came to me as seed and that which goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as blossom goes on as fruit. It is by Donna Markova. Thank you guys for showing up, Thank you guys online. Thank you that you have shown up as well. I just want to close with a blessing and a thought. I just ask that the Lord bless you and keep you. That the Lord turn his favor towards you, turn his face towards you and grant you favor. That you are blessed with peace.